Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Game Things. I'm your host for the week, Ming, and today we're going to start off by covering The Last of Us Part 1 remake that will be releasing for the PS5 on the 2nd of September this year. Over the week, we got a 10-minute deep dive into some of the new features that will be included in this upcoming remake. And after going through the deep dive video, I would say that I am pretty impressed with the upcoming features. Now, do I think that it's right to release a remake so soon after it got a remastered version in 2014? No, I don't really think it's the right thing to do, as it kind of feels like a cash grab. But honestly, if they are adding so many features to the game, then I guess it's excusable. One of the main features that is the highlight of this remake is the visuals. The visuals look stunning and the characters look so lifelike, and the emotions that they portray are just so realistic, and on top of that, it runs so smoothly that transitions from cutscenes seem so natural. Of course, visual updates are to be expected since the game will be releasing on the PS5, which technology-wise is so much better than the PS4. And taking advantage of this technological upgrade, the game will also be featuring haptic feedback on all sorts of actions using the DualShock controller. Every time you conduct any sort of actions ranging from upgrading your guns, pumping your shotgun, punching a clicker, or even petting a giraffe, the DualShock controller will have some sort of reaction to make it feel as though you are actually doing the actions in real life as well. Combining the new visuals and the haptic feedback feature, The Last of Us Remake will include environmental interactions that feel more realistic, ranging from things like chucking a grenade or a clicker chucking a rock at you. All these actions will now have more visual impact and the appropriate haptic feedback to further increase the player's immersions. Those are just some of the new features added taking advantage of the power of the PS5. Now, let's talk about some other upgrades or features that are more general and not exclusive to the PS5. To make the game more on par with The Last of Us 2, the developers have upgraded the AI of both enemies and buddies, making the game more challenging and interesting overall. Other than that, 2 new modes will be added to the game as well, and these modes are the permadeath mode as well as the speedrun mode. These 2 modes are pretty self-explanatory and are modes that have been long requested by fans of the game. Next, we have the usual cosmetic customization options. With this new remake, we'll have more options to customize the looks of Joel and Ellie, which is perfect for people that are really into customization. Then we have the last and final feature that was introduced in a deep dive video, which I personally think is extremely cool, and it's more accessibility options. According to the devs, they have added up to 60 plus accessibility options, and one of these options is text-to-speech for cutscenes. Why exactly do you need text-to-speech for cutscenes, you might think? In this case, text-to-speech for cutscenes basically refers to when the character is not saying anything but instead doing certain actions that might require some sort of narration when you can't actually see the action happening. For instance, let's say a scene where Joel is sleeping and Ellie is just doing like some sort of chores or something like that. During these type of scenes, you would need some sort of narration to help explain what's going on because neither characters are talking at all. And I honestly think this text-to-speech feature is really cool because it helps blind people actually know what's going on in the story without being able to see what's going on. And it definitely is very exciting that developers are actually thinking of adding more accessibility options so that players can further enjoy the game if they have any sorts of limitations that might potentially prevent them from doing so. All in all, the game is worth reliving as the overall upgrades are pretty solid and the story is a really good one if you have never experienced it before. If you don't own a PS5 and really want to get your hands on this game, I suggest for you to wait a bit, as there is currently a PC version of the remake that is under development that will supposedly be released sometime soon after the PS5 version. Of course, we at GameThings will be here to keep you guys updated on when the PC version will be releasing, so be sure to follow our socials and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on all the latest gaming news. The second major news we have for this week is rather alarming, I would say, and it's about Ubisoft. Ubisoft has recently confirmed that they will be cancelling 4 in-development titles. These titles are Splinter Cell VR, Ghost Recon Frontline, as well as 2 other unannounced titles. On top of the cancellation of these titles, 2 other titles in development will also be delayed as well. These 2 titles in question are the Avatar Frontier of Pandora, as well as another title that has not been named at this point of time. While there is no explanation as to why the titles are cancelled or delayed, it is quite unfortunate that this situation has occurred. So for fans out there that were initially waiting for the releases of all of the titles mentioned above, do take note of this announcement and manage your expectations accordingly. That's basically it for our major news this week. Now let's move on to our flash news segment, starting off with Zenless Zone Zero. Zenless Zone Zero is an upcoming gacha game by MiHoYo, the devs of Genshin Impact and Honkai Impact 3. The game will be having their first beta test on the 5th of August. So for players that are interested in the game and want to get a good first look of the game, make sure to sign up for the beta test as there is currently way too little information known about the game, so if you do manage to try the beta, you can flex on others using the information that you have on hand. The next flash news we have is on Resident Evil Village, or more specifically the upcoming Mercenaries Mode update. The upcoming Mercenaries Mode update will add a few popular characters and turn them into playable characters. These new characters include Chris Redfield, Heisenberg, as well as the poster lady of Resident Evil 8, Lady D herself. Now let's talk about the kits of these characters. Chris will have various guns and grenades at his disposal for him to use, so pretty similar to the usual Resident Evil experience. Heisenberg will be equipped with his huge hammer, and on top of that, he'll also have telekinetic powers as well as electricity powers. Finally, for Lady D, she will be able to use her large claws as well as call forth her daughters to aid her in combat. All in all, these are some pretty interesting additions to the Mercenary Mode, and it will be cool to be able to take control of the villains of the game to get a feel of how strong they really are. The next piece of news we have for you guys is rather interesting, and it's for the upcoming Gotham Knights game. So to tie in with the release of the game, DC will be releasing a 6-issue prequel comic for the Gotham Knights. Each issue will have a code that players can use to redeem in-game items when the game is fully released. If the players collect all 6 issues of the comics and redeem all 6 in-game items, they will be granted a bonus 7 item as well. This honestly isn't too impactful as the items are just cosmetic skins, but it is a pretty cool tidbit for players that are fans of the games and the comics. Next, we are going to talk about some rather unfortunate news, starting off with Persona 5 Royal. It has been confirmed that PS4 owners of Persona 5 Royal will not have the option to upgrade their game to the PS5 version and would have to pay full price for the game instead. Honestly, I don't know why this decision was made, as a lot of other games have this upgrade feature, typically at a price of around $10. Forcing your fans to pay full price for an upgrade just leaves a bad taste overall, and I really hope that developers do not do this in the future. The next unfortunate news we have is on titles by Guerrilla Games. Guerrilla Games have confirmed that they are going to be switching off the online servers and features for the following games on the 12th of August. These games are Killzone Mercenary, Killzone Shadowfall, as well as RIGS Mechanized Combat League. Single player modes will still be available, but any other online modes will no longer be available, so be sure to enjoy these modes to their heart's content before they go offline forever. Continuing with the trend of bad news, we move on to a delay segment with 3 different titles. The first title is Timisia, a Souls-like game that has been delayed to 18th of August from the original 9th of August. A 9-day delay which overall isn't too bad. The second title we have is Hytale. Originally planned to be released in 2023, the title has now been pushed further back as the devs have decided to redevelop their game's engine. This is terrible news as it could potentially take a really long time to redevelop a game engine, so for fans of this series, you guys are gonna have to wait a pretty long while. The last delay we have is on the upcoming Lord of the Rings Gollum. Originally set to be released on the 1st of September, the game has now been pushed back a couple of months with no exact release date yet as of this point. That's basically it for all our delays this week. Now let's talk about some games that you can get your hands on right now. The first title we have for you guys is Lost Epic, available now on PS5, PS4 and PC. Lost Epic is a 2D side-scrolling Souls-like game, and like many other Souls-like games, you have the ability to choose various types of weapons that best suits your playstyle and customize your stats to improve your performance with said weapon. The game also features a stamina meter for combat, so players will have to manage the meter carefully when attacking or dodge rolling, as it will be detrimental when you are caught unprepared with an empty stamina meter. On top of being a Souls-like game, the game also has some Metroidvania aspects to it, mainly the ability to explore new areas after unlocking certain abilities like breaking down walls. The standard abilities featured in other Metroidvania style games. Gameplay wise, the game doesn't really feel too interesting as it really looks like a mobile game more than a console and PC game. But visually, the game does look really appealing with great character designs and environmental designs as well. So if you're looking for something vibrant and just like 2D side-scrolling games, maybe give it a shot. But if you don't really enjoy these two genres, I highly suggest passing on this title and maybe grab the other two titles that we'll be talking about next. The next featured title this week is Digimon Survive. Yes guys, you heard that right, Digimon Survive is finally releasing for real this time. Digimon Survive is a rather interesting title as it has both visual novel aspects to it as well as tactical RPG aspects to it. So the way this game works is that most of the progression in the story is based on the visual novel aspect, similar to titles like Danganronpa, Doki Doki Literature Club, as well as Until Dawn. Which means that your choices matter, and for this game especially, they matter a lot, as it doesn't just affect the overall story, but it also affects how your Digimon will digivolve. For instance, if you choose the good path, your Digimon will digivolve into a quote-unquote good form, whereas if you choose the evil path, your Digimon will digivolve into a different form instead. So make sure to choose your decisions wisely. Whereas for combat, the game plays like most other tactical RPG games out there, mainly titles like Dissidia, Pokemon Conquest, as well as Final Fantasy Tactics. That's basically it on how the game would work, and if you think that Digimon is kinda childish for your age, then you are in for a treat, as this title is by no means child friendly at all, as the developers of the game has mentioned that the storyline for this title is targeted for adults, making the story much darker than a lot of other Digimon titles out there. So if you are interested in the Digimon franchise or just want a trip down memory lane, then give this title a shot as it honestly looks pretty good. The last featured title we have for this week is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is an action RPG game where you play as a cast of 6 main characters who belong to 2 different countries that are at war with each other. In terms of combat, the game is pretty interesting as how combat works is pretty similar to Final Fantasy 15, where you can freely switch between characters mid-battle, and while the game is an open world game, enemy encounters aren't exactly open world in this game. What I mean is that you will still see enemies roaming about freely, but when you approach them, you will enter a battle mode to initiate combat. Gameplay wise, the game is pretty fluid and there are a ton of mechanics that you can use and alter to aid you in combat, including things like classes, skills, tactics, and even a fusion mechanic between characters. So if you are into JRPG games, then maybe give Xenoblade Chronicles 3 a try. That's basically it for all the featured releases this week. Now let's move on to our final and most anticipated segment, Free Things. This week, Epic Games Store is giving out Lawn Mowing Simulator. And that wraps up our episode for this week. Once again, I was your host for the week, Ming. Thank you for your time, and I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Be sure to comment down below on what other content you would like us to cover as well. And that's all from me, folks, and we'll see you guys next week on the next episode of Game Things.